Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another video. I hope you are doing very well. And if you are new here, hi, my name is Rishika. I make bookish and lifestyle content. So if those things interest you, please do consider subscribing. You'll have a lot of fun here. And with that, let's dive into our video. Welcome to the mid-yearly wrap-up of the year 2023. I have this one diary that is of the year 2022. I just have this random diary. I keep a record of all the books that I have read. I write a little bit about them, basically a summary, and I give them ratings, and I write about my favorite characters, what are the parts that I liked in the book, and basically this is a book journal, and I write summaries like this. So we'll look into this diary, and then I'm going to give you my rating of all the books that I've read this year, and I'm also going to tell you the story of how I started reading once again. And with that, let's begin. Shit, I don't know who the hell is playing music right now. It's so. Wait a second, guys. I am just going to reshoot that whole thing again. The people, they were such an idiot. There was this one truck, the truck was playing music so loudly. They're not even near my house, and the music was so loud. I don't know what, how much volume they need. Just, it was so irritating. So basically, let's begin all over again. When I was young, I used to read a lot of books every day, every night basically. Before I fell asleep, I used to read like around 25 pages, 50 pages, and that is okay. I think that was a very good thing because I had to go to school also in the morning, and then I had to be in school the entire day, and by the night I got tired. So around 50 pages a night is a very good thing. I used to read books, but then somehow the habit of reading books just got lost, and I think in the year 2022 I did not read a single book, which is very sad because now I cannot imagine my life without books. I genuinely enjoy reading books. So I don't know what had gotten into me. It's not like I did not have books to read. I definitely had. I have this bookshelf. This is a bookshelf basically. There were books which were unread. I don't know why I did not pick them up and start reading. It was just that I have no explanation. Because genuinely I do not know why I did not read. But I think I was more into watching movies. Basically, I had a phone. I was into watching movies, watching web series, YouTube videos, and I think reading just became something I prioritized less. So that is how I stopped reading. Now let's get on with how I started reading again. Basically, I had this one exam which was on 30 January or 31st January, basically end of January, and then I had some free time, so I wanted to start reading again because I had books which were unread, and they used to look at me every time I was in this room. So I thought, let's just give it a try. And then I saw a YouTube video. She is also a booktuber, and she was reading this book by Amish Tripathi, and it is basically a trilogy. She had read all three parts and she had made a vlog about it, and I watched that vlog and I got inspired because I had the trilogy, the first two parts of the trilogy in my bookshelf. So I thought, why not give it a try? And Amish Tripathi is a writer I have read earlier also, and I have really liked his work. So I thought, it's not that bad. Amish is a good writer and I will definitely like his book, so why not give it a try? With that, let's begin our video. So the book I was talking about, the book that started my obsession with books, is basically this one. It is The Immortals of Mela by Amish Tripathi. This is the book one of the Shiva trilogy, and this is also, I think, the first book that Amish Tripathi ever wrote, and it was also a very hit book. Basically, this is a very popular book in India, and I started reading this book in February. Basically, I had to go back to my family in Kolkata in February. I went to visit them, so I did not get a lot of time to read when I was traveling. But it basically took me a month to finish this book. I was not a reader, so I read really slow, and moreover, I was on vacation, so I did not get enough time to read. So I started this book in the beginning of February and then ended it in the last week of February. This is a 5 out of 5 star. That time also, when I first read it, I rated it 5 out of 5 star, and now also the rating has not changed. And I can never say anything bad about this book, because this is the book that got me back into reading. This is the literal god of books, because if this book was not in my life, I would not have read so many other books that I read this year. This is a life savior. This is the book that brought me back into reading and brought me back into my element. So there is nothing I can say bad about this book, because this book basically saved my life. This book brought me back into reading, and I just love this book. This is a 5 out of 5 star for me. I really love this book. No complaints, nothing negative about this book can be said from my side. I love this book. The favorite character I had in this book was Parvateshwar. I think he was the Senapati of Sati's father. Sati's father is Daksha. Daksha's is the emperor, and he had a guy named Parvateshwar. So Parvateshwar is my favorite character in this book. This book is basically about Shiva. Shiva is the chosen one. He drank somras, and then after drinking, his throat turned blue, and that is how we know that he is the chosen one. Basically, there was this one myth that a person will be there whose throat turns blue, and he is going to be the savior. So everyone in the kingdom believes that Shiva is the savior, but Shiva is not so confident, because he doesn't know why he was the chosen one. And basically, Shiva is not so confident, and he goes around tours and realizes his strength, and he knows who are the evil, and he has to fight the evil. So this is a story of Shiva and how he got to realize his power. And there is also an explanation as to why he is the chosen one. It's not like mythology or anything. Everything has a valid explanation. That is what I really liked about this book, because nothing is like Shiva is the god, but in this book Shiva is not a god. Shiva is a normal person. Basically, Neelkant is a post that is given to Shiva, and anybody can be the Neelkant. It's not like Shiva only has to be the Neelkant. Anybody can be the Neelkant. And everything that we used to think that these are mythology, that these are characteristics related to gods, everything has been explained in this book very scientifically. So that is what I really liked about this book, and I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. After reading the first book in the Shiva trilogy, it was only right that I read the second book too. This is The Secret of the Nagas. This is also by Amish Tripathi, obviously. This is the second book in the Shiva trilogy. I had given this a 5 out of 5 at the time. This was a very good book. There were 2 plot twists in this book. That is what I really liked about this book. And this book is also basically giving you a lot of information, and everything in this book is also scientifically backed up. Nothing is imagination, or nothing is mythology. Everything has a scientific explanation. So that is one thing I really like about these books. So this was also a 5 out of 5 stars. I started this book at the end of February, and then I finished it in March. And that time I gave it a 5 out of 5, and it still is a 5 out of 5 for me. So go ahead, if you want, you can read these books. These books are really good, so I will highly recommend. And after that, moving on to the next book, it was only right to read the third book in the Shiva trilogy. This is the third book of the Shiva trilogy, The Oath of the Vayuputras. This is the favorite book of mine of the series. I really liked the part, especially the end of the book was really interesting, because it shows human emotion. Shiva here is not God. Shiva is a normal human being, and it shows the vulnerability of a human being. It shows that human beings have emotions, and sometimes anger takes a toll on those emotions, and it's beautifully written, and I really loved it. This book also filled up some gaps that we had from the previous books. It basically tied up all the loose strings. I highly recommend. This was my favorite book of the series, so if you want, you can definitely check these books out. I will always recommend these books to you. It is the next day. I do not know if you can tell it or not, but it is the next day. Yesterday, when I was shooting, my battery died, and then once I recharged my battery, the light was gone, and I thought that let's do it the next day because I do not want to shoot in bad lighting. The sunlight, there is no sunlight actually, it is cloudy, but there still is light, so we'll shoot today and then we'll complete our video today. So yesterday we talked about the first three books that I read. Those were from Amish Tripathi. These are the three books that we talked about. The first one is the Immortals of Mela, second is the Secret of Nagas, and the third is the Oath of Vayuputras. Now, in the month of March, in the beginning of March, the first week of March, there was this one book fair in Delhi. It is one of India's largest book fairs. So I had gone there, and I was not a reader by then. I had started on my reading journey, but did not know how many books I would read in a year, so I kept the number of books I shopped limited. I only shopped for 9 books, and the Oath of Vayuputras is one of the 9 books that I bought from the book fair. So the next few books that I read in the month were all books from book fair. So I will tell you the date also on which I read these. I do not have the date, I have the month. I started this in February, in the beginning of February, but then I went to my family in Kolkata, so I could not read a lot. I finished this in the beginning of March. I finished this at the end of February. Yes, I have this diary. It is written. It is from February 23 to February 23. Then this one I started in the end of February and I finished it in the beginning of March. And this I started in March and I finished it in March also. And this was my favorite out of the trilogy. After finishing the Shiva trilogy, I moved on to another trilogy. These books came in a box set. I bought the box set from the book fair itself. So this is the box set. This is the first book of the book set, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I read this in the month of March and I finished it also in the month of March. And then I read the second part in the book series. This is the second part, Good Girl, Bad Blood. I read this in the month of March and I finished it in the month of March. Then I read the third book from the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. This is As Good as Dead. I think I finished it. Yes, I started it in the end of March and I finished it in April. This is a pretty thick book, so it took some time. It is around 500 pages, or is it 6? Yes, it is 550 pages, so it took some time. And this was yes, the third book that I read, As Good as Dead. This was my favorite out of the trilogy. I really liked it. It is by Holly Jackson. I highly suggest. But if you are a minor, I will only suggest you that you read the first book because things get really dark after the second book. And the third book is really dark. There was this one part in the third book. I was reading at night, and when I read that part in the third book, I had literal chills. I was feeling scared that I might get nightmares, but nothing of that sort happened. But the book is really scary. And then there was one part in this book also, the second book. I was so scared after that. I had to close my book and I had to calm myself down. So that is why I would not suggest kids to read the 3 parts. The first part is actually very kid friendly. It is very good. It is from the point of view of a 17-year-old, so there is nothing as of that high level of danger that a kid cannot read it. But these 2 books are slightly dark, so read the trigger warnings also before you start reading them. After reading As Good as Dead, I moved on to this book. This is also a book that I purchased from the book fair that was happening in Delhi. This is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. I did not like the book. I felt that the book was really slow. It took me a very long time to read because it was so slow. I could not get myself to read more than 5 pages of this book each day, and it took me a very long time. It is only 380 pages long, but it took me around 20 days to read it because how slow it is. But then I saw a few booktubers, they liked this book, but I did not. So maybe there will be people who will love this book, and then there will be people who won't. So I do not recommend it. I gave this a 1 out of 5 star. I read this in April. I started this in April, and it took me 20 days. I finished it in April though, but it still ruined my month, and I could not read much because of this one book. This one book took so long to read that I could not get into other books. So I do not recommend it. You can read it at your own risk. I will not stop you from reading ever. So if you want, you can read it, but I will not recommend it to you. After that book, I read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is the first book that I read by Agatha Christie, and I really, really loved it. This was a 4 out of 5 stars. I read it in the month of April. I started it in April and I finished it also in April. This book was given to me by a friend of mine. I have known him since a very long time. I have known him since class 1, and he's a very good friend of mine. He loves reading Agatha Christie, and he also wants me to read them. So he gave this to me on my birthday. My birthday is in December, but I read this in the month of April. This book is really short. It is 250 pages long. It is short. Agatha Christie books are generally really short, but this was one of the best books I read. It is really, really good. I don't think anyone could have guessed the plot twist that was coming. I don't think it is possible. Agatha Christie writes books like those in which you will never be able to guess the killer. So I really, really liked it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I highly, highly recommend. After reading Agatha Christie, I jumped onto this book, 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. I did not like this book. Hannah Baker in this book was really... I could not just tolerate her. She was so irritating. It's like she was blaming everyone else, but she was not looking into herself. There is a Netflix web series on this book that is much better. It is fast paced. This book is really slow paced, so I did not like that also. And I just could not tolerate Hannah Baker. I do not know how I am supposed to sympathize with her if I cannot tolerate her at all. So I did not like this book. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. 3 is okay-ish. I'll not say it was too bad, but I could not tolerate the main character in this book. Clay, on the other hand, was really good. I really resonated with Clay. I liked him a lot, so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. After reading 13 Reasons Why, I don't know what is wrong. 13 Reasons Why, I went into this book. This is Mahagatha 100 Tales from the Puranas by Satyarat Nayak. This is a collection of 100 short stories which are based on the Puranas of Hindu mythology. There are stories about gods, asuras, and fights between asuras. There is story from Ramayana, Mahabharata, and stuff like that. There was... oh yes, there are a lot of pictures like this. There are these pictures throughout the book. These pictures are related to the story. I really like that part of the book, but as these are short stories, they are only 2 to 3 pages long, so there is no emotional connect with the characters, because you cannot connect with a person emotionally in just 2 to 3 pages. So if you do not have a lot of time in hand and you can only read for like 10 minutes a day, then I will highly suggest you this book, because there are short stories. It will hardly take you 10 minutes to read a story, so that is a very good way to approach it. But as a reader, if you read continuously, these stories can get boring because there is no emotional depth. Anyways, the stories were really good. I really liked the stories, just the emotional part was missing. So I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It is not bad, but I would not reread it. I would not remember the stories in 10 years from now, or maybe I do not even remember the stories now. I have forgotten most of them. Some of the stories I do remember, those were the good ones, really good ones, but most of the stories I have forgotten. So this is not a very high recommendation on my recommendation list, but if you want, you can read it. And if you do not have time to read a lot of time, then you can definitely try short stories. Short stories are really good for people who have very less time of the day to read. I realized that I forgot to tell you the time. So 13 reasons why I started in the month of April and I finished it in the month of May. And Mahagatha, I started it in May and I finished it in May. And now moving on, I read another book by Agatha Christie, The Murder on the Orient Express. I started this in May and I finished this in May. This was the second book that I read by Agatha Christie. I really liked the first book and that is why I picked up a second book by her. This was also gifted to me by the same person who had gifted me the other book by Agatha Christie. I really liked this book. I liked this one even better than the first one. This is also one of the most popular books of Agatha Christie. There are three books that are the most popular books of Agatha Christie. One is Murder on the Orient Express, this one, and then there was Nun, which I read earlier, and then there is another book, Murder of Roger Ackroyd. That is also a very famous book by Agatha Christie. I have that book, but I have not yet read it. I definitely will read it in the future. So this was a 4 out of 5 stars. I really recommend this. Also had one of the craziest plot twists. I liked this book a lot and I will highly recommend. After that, I read Shatter Me. Shatter Me is a reading vlog on my channel, so if you want, you can check that out. I read Shatter Me in the month of May. I finished it also in May. It was a really good book. I really loved it. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. This is the story of Juliet. Juliet basically has a power that whenever she touches a person, the person dies. So this story revolves around her. I really liked it. And then this is a series. There are 8 books in the series and I am actually reading book number 3 right now. So I will keep you guys updated on the Shatter Me series, but I definitely recommend. This is a very good book. I really liked it. It is also based on a dystopian world, so if you like those stuff, it will really interest you. So I highly recommend. After that, I read If He Had Been With Me. This is another book that I got from the book fair in Delhi. This is the story of Autumn and Finn, basically their love story. This book is also mentioned in the June wrap up. Because I started it in the month of May, but I finished it in the month of June. So there is this book in the month of June. I did not like this book a lot because I do not feel an emotion towards Finny. So I did not like it. You can watch my full review on the June wrap up. I think you will really like the video. So if you want, you can watch that video. I'll pin it here or here, maybe wherever that thing comes. I'll pin it there so you can watch it there. Now moving on, we read The Fine Print. The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. This is also mentioned in the June wrap up. I started it in June and I finished it in June. So if you want, you can check out the June wrap up video for this book. After that, I read The Silent Patient. I started it in June and finished it in June. This is one of my favorite books. I highly recommend. 5 out of 5 stars. You can check the June vlog for this. I just have no words to describe this book. The plot twist is crazy. The story is crazy. The story is really fast paced, so you will not even realize when you have reached the end. The story is really good. I loved this book, so I highly recommend. After that, I read All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. This is a very good book. I highly recommend. 5 out of 5 stars for me. Colleen Hoover, though, is a very controversial author. I do not support her in any way, but her books are really good. This is actually the first book that I read by Colleen Hoover. I have not read any of her other books. So this was a very good start to her professional life, her books. It was a very good start. I hope I can read more of her books in future, but please do not cancel me for supporting her. I do not support her, but I really like her books. In the month of June, I had also read a novella that is Unite Me. Unite Me has two novellas, Destroy Me and Fracture Me. Destroy Me is the second part of Shatter Me. So basically this book contains of two novellas, so I did not mention it in my diary. There is no mention of it in my diary because I did not finish the whole book. I read only half of it, that is the Destroy Me part. And I think I will write about this book after I have read the full book. There are actually Destroy Me is there, then Fracture Me, and then in the end there is a part where there is writings from Juliet's journal. So after I have read the entire book, then only I'll write it in my diary. So this was also a read in the month of June. So you can also check out my June wrap up for that, because that there I have talked in a lot of detail about all of the books that I read in the month of June, so you can check that out. Now moving on to the next book, I think I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. There is a vlog on my channel of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, you can check that out. I really love this book, a 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend. By the time I think most of the people know what Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is about, and but if you want a long discussion on Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, do check out my vlog that is on my channel. I'll link it in the description and also here or here, wherever that thing comes. So I highly recommend. 5 out of 5 stars. After that, now we are moving on to, actually I did not finish talking about this. I read this in the month of July. I started it in June and finished it in July. July is currently going on. So I am reading this book. This is Unravel Me. This is the second book, or you can even call this the third book if you include the novella. This is the third or the second book in the Shatter Me series. I am 100 pages in. I actually could not read this book because my phone, I don't know, something happened with my phone and I could not record it. I wanted to shoot a reading vlog, so I could not do that without my phone. My phone had gone to repair basically, so I could not shoot it. So I thought that let's keep it aside for now. I will read this book when my phone comes back. And then I picked up another book. The book is And Then There Were None. It is, I don't remember the name of the author. It is kept in the other room, so I'll not go and get it now. But I'll definitely show it to you in some later video. I'm reading that, and once I finish this, I will read Unravel Me. Unravel Me will be a vlog on my channel, so if you want, you can check that out in the future. So that is it. That is it for the mid-yearly wrap-up. That are all the books that I read. I think I read a total of 17 books in this year, starting from February, if you want to count February, because I read only one book in February because I was traveling. Other than that, this year has been a very good reading year because I started rereading, and that has been one of the best experiences of my life. I think, yes, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo was the 17th book that I read this year, and after that, if you count And Then There Were None, that will be the 18th book, and Unravel Me will be the 19th book that I read this year. I'm hoping to read around 40 to 50 books by the end of the year, so I hope that I can finish that goal. And that is it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please show some love, like this video, share this video, comment on this video, and share it with your friends and family. I hope everyone will like it. And please read some books, because I regretted, now that I read, I regret the part of my life when I did not used to read. So if you want, you can start reading with any of these books that I have recommended in this video. Those are very good books, and all of these books are beginner friendly. They are very simple in the writing style is very simple. There are no complicated words, so you'll not face any issue with that. And that is it for this video. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. This is how my room looks now. There are 2 piles of 17 books that I read this year, and I do not know how I'm going to clean this, but I hope I will be able to put everything back.